This is Black and White and Shades of Gray, Case Study 8.2 for EDLD 8406 by Alicia Lyles, Anita Walker, and Sharon Weldon. In our case study, the dilemma comes down to equality and equity. Equality looks at the individual and the circumstances surrounding him or her and how that affects his or her rights. Equity looks at the individual and the circumstances surrounding him or her and how that affects his or her rights. The dilemma details. After making strides and moving toward a more ethnically balanced faculty, Principal DiCaprio is faced with a reduction in force order. Teacher associations support a last hired, first fired rule. DiCaprio wanted to let a teacher go that would put him in the violation of that rule. Following last hired, first fired rule would put an end to his minority hiring program. The wife of the teacher he wants to release is expecting. The main points. Community experienced an economic growth that changed the ethnic composition of the community. Minority students were increasing in number. Protests from the minority student body led the principal to develop a minority hiring program and to offer an African American history class. Then a recession came along and stunted and reduced the population. Due to the reduction in population, the high school was required to reduce the faculty by one teacher. The last hired, first fired rule was supported by the teacher association. The last two teachers who were hired were strong minority teachers. The principal wanted to release a teacher with 2 years experience. Let's look at a short video on RIF, the reduction in force. In the next clip, you will get glimpses of all 4 paradigms. In the justice paradigm, we include rules, laws, legal principles, and legal ideas. We'll look at things such as last in, first out, that rule. Loyalty should be recognized, and decisions based on seniority destroy improvement initiatives. Also included in the justice paradigm are equality and equity. Aristotle held that justice consists in treating equals equally and unequals unequally. In our case study, the ethical justice in Mr. DiCaprio's situation would be to solve his dilemma using the Sergio Vanni view of educational leadership as a steward. He would have to view the school as an extension of the community. In the care paradigm, we have to look at meeting the needs of the students. Whole child needs must be considered. Initiatives had a positive impact on the school culture. Care, concern, and connections must be embedded in the curriculum in order to meet the needs of the students. Equity is at the center of care. Those who care will listen to the voices of the diverse groups. The ethic of care in this situation is that because he listened to the students, Mr. DiCaprio hired more minority teachers and he implemented an American history class. But now he faces a dilemma of having to let go of a teacher. He wants to cut the teacher who has been teaching for 2 years instead of last one hired, first one fired. The critique paradigm raises difficult questions that critique both the laws themselves and the process used to determine if the laws are just. It asks questions like, who is in power? Who are the decision makers? Who knows what is best for the students? The isms in society must be challenged and addressed. We also need to challenge the status quo, things such as race, ethnicity, economy, culture, exceptionalities, community values, politics, and the trends. Critique justice can be applied and analyzed in Mr. DiCaprio's situation by asking the question, is the last hired, first fired law ethical when trying to build and increase the number of minority teachers? The profession paradigm includes ethical principles and code of ethics embodied in the justice paradigm, but also takes into account the other ethical paradigms. In light of ethical, moral, and professional standards, Shapiro states that administrators should develop their own personal and professional codes. Included in the professional paradigm, principals must identify the student needs in his or her building and not simply justify the adult needs. By addressing the evolving needs of our students, this will determine the success of our future as a community and a nation. The ethical profession looks at making the right decision for students. So in our situation, Mr. DiCaprio must identify what the needs are for the students in his school first, not justify the adult's interests. The Alabama Educator Code of Ethics says that leaders must provide an environment in which all students can learn. This is built on trust, respect, confidence, safety, professionalism, responsibility, and adherence to all policies and laws. Leaders must also protect the health, safety, and general welfare of students and educators. In reviewing the Code of Ethics, many questions arise. Some of the questions in our case was ongoing professional development opportunities provided to all or just the newest teachers involved in the principal's initiative? Is the last hired, first fired rule a legally binding law or policy in the district? Where do equality and equity line up in this case study? The issue befalling Mr. DiCaprio is difficult. Not knowing the opportunities that Mr. Peter Weiss had been given makes it hard to analyze using the Alabama Code of Ethics. Did Mr. DiCaprio provide professional development to strengthen his practice of teaching? The case study doesn't identify any unethical behavior on the part of Peter Weiss. The more you study, the harder it is to define what is right. The multi-paradigm approach is vital in looking at this case, yet the right thing to do is still shrouded in shades of gray. Right is not about color, but must be about what is best for the students. We must keep the main thing, the main thing.